Yeah, hello, Joep.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you for making this possible.
Thank you for making this.
Well, you are a trumpet player and you also play the flugelhorn and you also sing sometimes, I saw. And you are also a teacher. Please, can you tell me how the trumpet and flugelhorn became a serious instrument in your life?
Yeah, well, first, I'm from a village in the Netherlands, and in the Netherlands we have a kind of a wind band tradition in villages, and that was my first start. So that is one reason why I play a wind instrument. Uh, I could have chosen another one, but in that period they needed trumpet in the wind band, and I also liked the instrument because it could be quite noisy and kind of fun as a little boy, and so I started like that in a wind band. Um, it was a very nice way to start. It was a little bit after a time. It was getting a little bit boring because I learned about different kinds of music, and then then you find out that there's more. So I wanted to try more, and so I started playing more different styles and ended up playing jazz trumpet. And in the jazz music, it's also common to switch between trumpet and flugelhorn. So it was a logical combination to also start playing flugelhorn. Sometimes it's also necessary if you play big bands and that kind of things. You need to double on flugelhorn. So it's that's the start of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did it become like a serious instrument like that way that you would like to make a serious living from that?
Well, I think first when I started, I never thought about like it as my future work, but as time went by, I enjoyed learning more about the instrument and different kinds of music. When I was in high school, I studied 1 year in the United States in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and there I could see the fun part of the instrument in playing. There was a jazz band, and marching band was also kind of interesting, but especially the jazz band was interesting. And when I came back, I thought, well, if it's possible, I will try it. So I tried to get in the music school, and that worked out. And then I felt like it never got me bored. It's always interesting, and I think that's with art kind of a nice thing to work in that field. It's it always continues. It's always in something new. It's fun. So it just kind of went that way, that it became important to me, and it still is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what does fascinate you about these two horns in special, like the trumpet and the flugelhorn? Because they are sound-wise a little bit different.
Right.
And of course, you play with both, with a lot of air pressure on metal.
Yeah.
And there's always some water around, right?
Yeah. Right. You have to be careful that the water doesn't stay inside, because then it starts you get a funny sound. Well, it can be nice also, but well, the two instruments are quite different, but also quite similar. Because in my case, I play on my trumpet also with a quite careful tone, maybe I could say. Like you can play it like with a real sharp tone, but you can also kind of approach it in a different way, and I do that in a little different way, and in that way it sounds actually quite similar to the flugelhorn sound, but the flugelhorn has something a little bit special. It's more easy to blend with like woodwinds or some other instruments, and it's also the tone is pretty much always sounds good. So you don't need to, like, if I play somewhere and the acoustic is not good, or I play somewhere and this the sound engineer I don't trust, then the flugelhorn can be a very safe and nice option. The trumpet is is automatically already more sharp, naturally more sharp. So it can be a challenge to make it feel warm, make the sound warm. But since the trumpet is my main instrument, the flugelhorn is something what I use as an extra. I mostly enjoy the trumpet actually to play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you were born in Noordbroek.
Yeah.
That's a very small village
Right.
in the east part of Groningen, you can say, somehow.
Yeah.
Are there stories for you that could explain how a small village environment, which is kind of an island, was important for you to grow up with, or maybe not?
Well, that's a good question. It's a difficult question in some way. I think actually my wife sometimes tells me that kind of environment it was good for me to that my sound or how I perform reflects that past in some way. And I think she might be right, but I don't know exactly how that is. But I think that kind of village or that kind of that countryside kind of feeling. As for a child, it can be quite pure to grow up like that, and that might be a good thing for creativity maybe. But I don't know. It's a hard question. Maybe you can specify a little bit how you what you.
Yeah, well, somehow I think when you're born on a kind of an island situation, you have a bigger or a better contact to everybody around you. That can make you also stronger the way how you want to go out.
Okay.
But maybe also not. So it depends, of course, on the way how your personality is made and how you work on that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not I'm not a very I went to school not in the same village as where I live. I went to I liked to move always around. So when I was young, I was living in Noordbroek. But as soon as I had the chance, I lived in the United States. I went to Groningen. I went to Amsterdam. I went to Leipzig, Germany, and so I'm maybe that kind of island feeling has some kind of good thing, but I enjoy looking over that maybe looking further.
Okay. Yeah. So somehow maybe you have to free yourself from that isolation.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
I could imagine. Yeah.
Well, you studied at the Prins Claus Conservatorium in Groningen in the Netherlands.
Yes.
Can you tell me what you learned there the most?
Yeah.
What is still important for you today?
Yeah. Well, I think I learned a lot of things there. When I studied there, I sometimes had difficulties understanding and appreciate all the different parts of what they teach you. Sometimes it feels not connected. Like it's all kinds of different classes, theory, piano classes, or your own instrument classes, ear training, and they all sometimes feel like they are not so much connected. But after finishing the school, I really felt like it comes together slowly. It's like it feels like, oh yeah, that's what I learned. And I think that really stands with what kind of teachers you have. And I think like my main teacher is Kurt Weiss, was Kurt Weiss, and he's somebody who really works hard for his students. So he always, he gives extra homework, and after he gets the homework back, he will check it he will take as much time as I spend on making the homework. It's a special kind of teaching, I think, and that really that are kind of memories from. Oh yeah, that's something. What is amazing about that school experience for me, and what I learned there is that. Well, I think it was very focused, the education there, on kind of more the traditional kind of style of jazz music. I think that is like bebop orientated, and I think that is a very good way to approach it in some way, because that is a very theoretical way of explaining the music. In bebop you have certain unwritten rules which are quite clear, so it's easier to teach and it's easier to receive, and I think that is something what helped me understand that music, and also helped me find a next step in what is possible, what kind of music to make. So I think that was a good basis for learning.
Yeah. You also had a teacher coming from New York.
Yes. Yeah.
Who was that?
That were actually several. I started with Valery Ponomarev, Russian-American trumpet player.
He played with Art Blakey's
Yes,
Jazz
Art
Messengers.
Blakey, and the next one was also one of the last Art Blakey Jazz Messenger trumpet player, Brian Lynch. And for me that was those two, and we also had lessons with the trombone teacher Konrad Horwig, so that was also a very nice experience. A very passionate teacher with a very strong opinion, and that was, for me, that was one of the memories I have, is that, you know, I went there as a young boy, and I actually, when I first came to that school, I didn't know anything about jazz music. I was kind of new to it, and like they were talking about some kind of chords, and I was like, oh, what is that? I had no idea. And but yeah, it was getting better and better, and then I had a lesson with him, and he asked me to play over some kind of chord changes. He asked me to play some kind of pattern, and I started, and felt like, well, it's going well, and then I messed up, and I thought, well, I did quite well, but then he came to me, he's like, hey, why did you fuck up, man? Why did you make a mistake? And he was quite angry. He, like, you know, I was kind of, oh, okay, I should do better. So he, do it again. Okay, I do again, and I got a little bit further, but I made a mistake again, and he sounded more angry after that. And you know, it was kind of for me now, it's like kind of a learning experience of, especially also as a teacher, that there are so many different styles of teaching. Like if I compare what kind of teachers I had, like Kurt Weiss is a very kind man, very supportive, and this kind of style is more just like, man, you should not mess up. If you mess up, you have a big problem. Kind of that kind of feeling. It both is. I think it's good to have that kind of combination. Like I think with Kurt, if I went to the lesson, you know, I could find a lot of support, and I could learn from that in some way. But I could also go there and like say, today my lips don't work well, and then, you know, we would be just talking 1 hour about that. Yeah, my lips also don't work so well, that kind of thing. So it's both. It's interesting, and I think those teachers were a good part of it.
Yeah. Well, can you put some words into the message, the main message, what they gave to you for your path?
Yeah. Well, like Kurt Weiss is he lives in Amsterdam. So after I finished school, I moved to Amsterdam, and I worked there, different things as a freelancer, and I met him also sometimes there. So he always was kind of in some way a little coach sometimes, if it was interesting and a good help. What kind of message? It's a difficult thing to say. I don't know what kind of message they gave me, but I think at least they gave me a lot of confidence in like, just work, just do it, have fun, and that's a quite different thing from what I see in Korea. Like in Korea, if you have a teacher in school, he will be your teacher forever, and you will always be his student. So that is kind of a problem, because that makes, in the beginning when you just finish school, it feels like what I see there, the students, is that they don't have a chance to grow independently fast, because they are still kind of under pressure of their teachers. And I think what I felt here is, after I finished school, I was like, okay, now you're part of the group, and let's work, let's have fun. Yeah, that's nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you said it already, Korea.
Yeah.
You traveled often to Korea until you decided to settle there. What means you moved there to really live there?
Right.
Can you please explain me what for you is the big fascination to live in South Korea, which is more or less also an island, right?
Yeah, it's more or less, yeah, it's an island, and yeah. Well, the fascination with me just started by I enjoy different cultures, different places, and meeting people with different ideas, different backgrounds. And so first, when I studied in Groningen, I met some Koreans who also studied at the same school, and we hang out and we had fun. And I went there a few times to visit, to play some music, and came back to the Netherlands every time again. And after meeting my wife, I moved there. And you know, it's in life, it's just kind of a happening. It's not planned. It just happens like that. And but the fascination, I think it's just kind of the exotic thing. You know, I enjoy being a foreigner. It's an interesting way of living. It's and especially in a country like Korea, it's until quite recently there were not so many foreigners, and these days it's like in Seoul it's quite crowded with foreigners, but it used to be not like that. And so there's also still areas where you go, and especially I notice now here that when I visit, when I see children in the Netherlands, they act normal to me. But if I see children in Korea, then sometimes they start crying, or sometimes they like almost always they are a little bit like, oh, what's going on? There's a foreigner. And so that's an interesting thing. It can be frustrating, but in general it's fascinating, and I like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you married in 2014.
Yeah,
Yeah?
I think so, yeah.
You have a little son.
Yes.
And another child will come as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
What are their names? And
yeah.
do they have a meaning, maybe?
That's interesting, yeah. No, actually, my son's name is Jeff. It doesn't have much meaning. It's we just thought it sounds nice, and it works in Korean and many other languages. So that was kind of the idea. And in Korea they will say Jeep, because Jeff you cannot end like that, but it's Jeep. And yeah, so in Korea it's kind of funny because his name, they turn it around, so his name there is Ban Lai In Jeep. They would write it like that, or it sounds like that. And yeah, the baby that is coming, he doesn't have a name yet. But in Korea they give babies that are in the belly, they give kind of like a temporary name. And there's a cartoon which my son likes, and it's called Pororo, and they so it's kind of sounds like the Posongi, it's called now, and so or it's she called, yes, it will be a girl as far as we know. And so we still have to find a name for it. We don't have a meaning yet, and no name. but
Yeah. And did you also got a new name there in Korea
me
yourself?
no, I didn't get a new name, but well, sometimes there were like my my what is it? My wife's uncle. He thought my name was a little bit difficult, so he just said, "Oh, okay, I will call you Yongsok," and then he just made a new name, and that sometimes happens that people are confused and then it's too difficult.
And does this new name also have a special meaning?
No, I thought he just thought it sounds he could remember it better than I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in Korea you have to deal also with very strong traditional culture.
Yeah.
Well, big difference to life here, I think.
Right.
Especially, I think, like meeting your wife's parents, for example. How do you deal with these new rules? And do you like it?
Yeah. Well, there has been easy things and more difficult things. What you say, meeting my wife's parents was first was a big step, but it turned out to be not so difficult. Like my wife was a little bit worried to introduce me to her parents, and in Korea it's also kind of funny if you meet your girlfriend's parents. It's kind of like you ask for marriage approval. It's like there's no way back anymore. It's all set. So when I was going to meet them, my wife thought, oh, it's a good idea to just organize a trip together. So my first experience was I went to their house, and my father-in-law, he said, I will not go on a trip with somebody I don't know. So he first said, okay, let's first just eat dinner together and drink together, because that's kind of a cultural thing there. It's kind of they call it kind of an alcohol test. If you act okay when you're getting drunk, then they believe you will be okay. they feel like they can, kind of push through your shield. And I passed that test quite easily. He fell asleep before I fell asleep, and so it was kind of fun. But it's true, when I went there first before marrying, I thought I knew something about Korean culture, but after I got married, I found out there's much more behind it, which I didn't know, like how the connections, because that's the big thing, is the connections, the relationships between the people. So there's different in age, like if you talk to somebody older than you talk different. If you talk to somebody younger than you talk different. If you talk to somebody from the same age, you talk different. And if you and in the families it's the same. So if you have I have to talk different to my father-in-law than to his younger brother, maybe my wife's uncle. But it's all quite complex. But they also enjoy me as a grandson these days, so it's quite easy actually. It's fun. It's nice. Yeah. So it's the Korean culture has difficult things and like strange things for me. One thing is kind of a political. There are like when you work somewhere, there are kind of like as a foreigner, you will not easily get like a full-time job somewhere. Like if you want to work at like in my case, many musicians, they want to get a teaching job at a university, for example. Well, part-time teaching jobs are impossible to get, but like a full-time job will be difficult as a foreigner, because there are a lot of political games. So people, they give a job to their the person who studied under the same professor, or there's like very clear lines. And as a foreigner, we didn't study under one professor, so it's difficult to to get in one of those groups. And also, I don't want to be in one of those groups, so I work with all the different groups. But like for the real, the long-term jobs, it's difficult to get. But the lucky thing is that I don't want a full-time teaching job. So at this moment, so I enjoy that just as a freelancer, and my wife makes sure I get enough work, so it works out well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I heard that Seoul is the second big room or the second big space on Earth after Mexico City.
Oh, okay.
And all the traffic is working there very well. What is your idea about traffic in South Korea? How is it organized? And why is it such a difference to Europe?
You mean transportation?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think people use a lot of cars. It's a very they make a lot of cars, they sell a lot of cars, and they also use a lot of cars, and there are also a lot of traffic jams. Like in Seoul, if you I live a little bit outside of Seoul, and normally if I play in the country, like not in Seoul, it's a big head start. I can arrive much earlier than my other players who live in Seoul. It's a big step to get out. There's a lot of traffic, and it's quite complicated. But on the other way, the subway system, the bus system, it's very organized, and it's very easy to use, and it's cheap. So it's quite comfortable to move around, even though it's a huge city. But you can move like 1 hour, 1.5 hours. You can move through the whole city, and that's easy. Yeah, they organize it well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, do you also feel a little bit about the conflict with North Korea there? Is there some kind of fear in the air?
And of course there are some, but it's not as much as I would think if I only would read the Dutch newspaper. Like I last year, I think it felt like most troubling. Like there were a lot of things happening. In Korea, if I talk to friends or my wife or other people I knew, then there was never any doubt that it would be okay. People always thought it would be okay. And in the Netherlands, I read the news, the Volkskrant regularly. It felt like it was continuing story after story, and it was building up. It was very entertaining to read. It felt like it was kind of I'm sure it was real, but it was also it was very well told. So it feels like it's a little bit dramatized, maybe in some way. And I think I think that's kind of the thing. It is. It's this is already happening. The same kind of. And it's from both sides. It's from the south and the north, both sides. There's always there's some war exercise or some exercises by the army, and there's some things happening, and then there's always some kind of tension. But that's already for the last many years. It's already a long time like that, and people are getting kind of numb to it. So it's. It's not these days. There, I don't feel anything from it. Yeah. But there's a new president there, and he is trying to work in a more peaceful way to try to move together a little bit. And I think he does a good job with that, and people are very happy with that. I think there's an older generation which. For them, it's sometimes difficult to accept that, but I think in general people are happy with that movement. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, the Korean language is somehow very poetical.
Yeah.
How did you learn this language?
Well, I'm still learning. It's not easy. It's a kind of fun language because it's kind of like. It's a logical language in many ways. The writing is not as difficult as it looks. It consists of just a certain amount of it's kind of parts of characters. So you combine certain parts and then you make a character with that. and that's actually not so difficult. So when you learn that, you can say the sounds, but then you don't know the meaning yet. So that's the first part. You can learn the Hangul, the Korean language, but then we don't know the words yet. So that's something what took more time for me, and that's difficult. Yeah, because there's nothing the same. There's a few. They use a few of like kind of English style words, but for the rest it's all from Chinese or new Korean words, and that's it's difficult to learn. But I can do simple conversations, and I can teach my instrument. I could not teach a history lesson or something. That would be difficult. Yeah.
Okay. Well, can you say that the Korean lifestyle changed you and your way of being, of living?
Yeah, I think so. It is quite different. Living in Korea is like it's moving fast. Like Korea is very. I'm a slow person, but Korea is very fast. It's always moving, and like if you want to do something now, you can do something now. If you want to do something tomorrow, you can do something tomorrow. In the Netherlands, if you want some paperwork done, you have to first, you have to go there, and then you have to get the paper, then you get the paper, then you fill it out, then you send it, and they send the paper back that they got your paper, and then you have to wait for, and so it takes more time. And there you just go somewhere, you sign something, and it's done. That is in some ways easy. I mean, it can be kind of a pressure on the workers. Workers have to work a lot. For me, I think that kind of fast changing environment is in some ways nice. It can be also a little bit stressful. There's a lot of things happening. But like for organizing, like my wife's company, she organizes some festivals and producing things, and then it's nice if you can work fast. So we, sometimes there are like one festival, there was a lot of delay in getting the design back, the main design, and then in Korea it works. You can organize a festival. You can start promoting a festival 3 weeks before, and still you can sell tickets. It's a funny thing. Yeah, it's different than here. Yeah. So how it changed me, it's difficult to say for myself, but I think maybe it's just maybe I became a little bit Korean in some ways. Yeah, that my lifestyle or my eating habits, my mostly practical things maybe.
Well, yes, but does it also influence your way of understanding music and also understanding lifestyle the Western way, and also the Western way of being a musician? How is that?
Yeah, well, I think I think that's a nice question, because Korean music has also very old tradition, and it's quite different. Like tuning is different. So like I played sometimes with traditional instruments, and then you have to be careful to not feel like why they are playing out of tune the whole time, because it's just a different kind of playing style, and it's different skills. And also with rhythm, it's the same thing. Like in American-based music, it's pretty much a metronome what is always there. In European classical music, it's also already a little bit different. It's also kind of organic. But in Korean music, it's really, they call it also a wave. It's kind of a wave. It's not just a beat, not a pulse. So one time I had kind of a little gig with a traditional percussion player, and I thought, well, we just need to prepare something quickly, so we played a jazz standard, and I asked him, please just keep a little time, keep it very simple. But it was impossible. It was impossible to play. He could not play like a metronome, or like, and of course it's also kind of unrespectful to ask that, but it's a very different understanding of rhythm. So like if we think about rhythm in this part of the world, we think about the metronome. If you think, or you maybe as a basis, as a kind of a strict rule, this is tempo that, and there it's more like just a feeling of a wave. It keeps coming back, keeps turning, and that gave me an understanding for music is not there's more, and it's interesting to see when I played. I made a CD with a Korean traditional vocalist, and I arranged for him, and it's interesting to see about in what kind of way can we understand each other, and that makes you think about the music, how it reflects the culture, and how it works, it's
okay.
Yeah.
Well, you have since a short time at least 2 CDs with your trio, or better, you with your duo.
Yeah.
And these are Korean musicians.
Right.
It's a piano player and a double bass player.
Right.
Yeah. What does inspire you about this special setting?
Well, in the first place, I thought about making. I like just the open sound of where you can hear everything. Like if you have a group with 2 guitar players, and then it's kind of like washing each other away. That can be a thing. But sometimes they can be nice also. But I enjoy that open sound, and especially without drums, you have you hear the bass sound much better. You hear the attack. You hear and it's comfortable playing like that for me. Sometimes it can feel a little bit naked to play with a small group like that, and without drums or other instruments. But it's comfortable, and of course it depends with who you play. If you with these 2 people, the piano player is kind of an active comedy kind of guy. He's funny and he's active. The bass player is more slower, like me a little bit, but he has a very lyrical style of playing. So I think that kind of combination is kind of funny. It works well.
Yeah. And what is very special for you to play with your South Korean bandmates?
Yeah. What is very special?
Yeah. Because you play since a while already, since some years already with them.
Yeah.
So how is the relationship between you and them?
Well, the bass player I know already from, I met him in the Netherlands. He studied in Amsterdam before, and I used to play sometimes in the Netherlands with him, and then in Korea we started playing again. So we are just friends, and he's also the same age as me, which is in Korea kind of a important thing, because then you can talk in a most easy way to each other, and you can say anything you want. You don't need to hold back. The piano player is younger than me. That's also a easy thing, because I can tell him anything I want him to do. But he's actually more successful than all of us. So he in some way I cannot tell him everything he wants to do. But they're both very busy people. So sometimes that can be a difficult thing. But this year we. Through my wife's company, we had a lot of different projects. We worked with them together, and that we could get their time, and we really enjoyed. It's fun to work together in that way. They're players with different backgrounds. The piano player also has composes some K-pop music sometimes. He also, but he's mostly very active as a jazz piano player. And it's a fun combination. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you just told me that you also try to arrange new activities here in Holland with Dutch musicians.
Yeah.
Is there a difference for you to play with Korean musicians and, for example, European?
Ooh, I don't know if there's a big difference. I think there might be, in some way, yeah. Like for example, in Seoul, it's mostly in and out when you have a gig. It's like you sound check 5 minutes before, and directly playing, then out. That's kind of like the club style, the jazz club style. And like there's not many possibilities to hang around because there are people waiting for who want to have a seat, and that can be kind of frustrating. You know, it's not there. The social part can be a little bit confusing then. In the Netherlands, it's a little bit more relaxed. I think in that way, you spend a little bit more time preparing and getting ready. Also, in Korea, it's quite common to work nighttime, like especially in the busy season. It's quite regularly we have rehearsals that start at 12 at midnight, and then so that's in some, I think that's quite a different feeling with here, where we work more regular hours and we keep more time for ourselves. Maybe there it's more just racing from one place to the other place, and being on time and get it over with and get back. Can be sometimes like that, but in general it's fun.
Okay. Well, can you tell me what for you is the most perfect or the most beautiful sound?
Okay. Well, I think that would be when you can hear that it's when you can hear somebody's that there's somebody behind it. So like for me also the most beautiful sounds, like if you reflect that it reflects somebody's personality or somebody's story or somebody's life, it is the most nice thing to see, I think. And like I also think that in some way there's not really levels in quality of music. There's more just a way that, you know, some people are more able to transform themselves into their music, or like to how to say, to show themselves through the music, and some people have more difficulties of showing themselves through the music, maybe. So, and I think in that way it's just nice to hear somebody's, you know, if you feel like, if you see Tom Harrell, a trumpet player, you can feel his life, you can feel his, maybe even his sickness, or his happiness, or you can see that in his music, and that, I think that's a really strong thing of what is a nice sound. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, next question goes about composition. Can you tell me how you compose? Do you need something for getting in the right atmosphere, or is it just a normal procedure that you can compose all the time?
Yeah, no, well, like I think I can compose all the time, but sometimes it will take a long time before I get to the point that I feel like it's finished. Like sometimes it takes 1 hour before something is finished, and sometimes it takes a few days, and that is and normally when it takes a few days, it's not always so nice after that. Normally the fast ones are like, oh yeah, they come, oh yeah, that sounds good, and that so, and it doesn't really come with like, I don't have a certain methodology how to start composing. It's just mostly behind the piano, and then I start with some chords, or I start with an idea of a form, or an idea with a melody, and that's basically, yeah. And like it's the same with, like, you know, it's instrumental music, so I like when I make titles, for example, it's difficult for me. Like I have just a feeling with the music, but not really, like, you know, it's not like that I could transform it into a title. So normally I just record it and then I ask my wife to listen to it, and she says, okay, it sounds like that. So okay, that's a good title. Then we put that on it. And so it's composing is just for me is about sounds, and then later I find the meaning in, well, okay, yeah, this is what it's about.
Okay. Well, the next question is about improvising. How is this working for you? Are you somehow related to a kind of system, or are you totally free in improvising?
I think I'm very relating to a system. I think it, but the system is something which is the way. The system is in the practice room and is in preparing music. When performing, I don't think about the system, so it's there, of course, because I train myself in that way. I like to think in systems, but I think during performing, I don't think about it. It's not an active thing, the system. So it's. I think improvising is not 100% correct word in most jazz music. It's more. We practice certain things which work, and then 80% of the things come out what we hear automatically directly, and 20% is things what we can think of at the moment. And I think it's improvisation is not the biggest part of it. It's kind of like constructing things of what you already heard, or what you feel like fits in that moment. And so I think during performance, I'm not relating to systems, but in practicing, it's all about systems.
Yeah. Well, but when you play trumpet and the flugelhorn, you need to have stable lips.
Yeah.
And I think also good teeth, because when they are gone maybe through an accident, and then you will have a problem. Like Chet Baker had these problems during his lifetime and his career. How is this for you? Do you have to be very careful with your lips and or?
Well, it's a good question. I think the lips, or not only the lips, the whole mouth is. Actually, the whole face it has so many small muscles which you use that you need to work it at least a little bit every day to keep it in kind of a stable way. So like for me, if I don't play today, tomorrow might be okay, but the day after will be difficult to have enough endurance to get through the whole gig. So I try to keep a little stable routine every day. If I don't have a gig, I play myself, I practice something, or just warm up if I don't have much time. If I have a gig, normally it's fine to just keep it stable. And for the rest, when I was a child, I was in a water slide and I hit my teeth, and one is broken. So they pasted something on it, and now it looks normal in some way. I mean, it's a little bit, slowly the color changes. So sometimes people say, just change it. But I'm scared. If I change it, I think it might not be, you might change the whole thing. So I will not do that. I will just keep it.
So it might influence also the sound.
Yeah, it might influence the sound. Of course, there's also other risks that it doesn't work well if they put it, and the teeth might die. And then you have a bigger problem, then they have to put something else, and then you have more changes again. So I would worry about that a little bit. And then there's people like I met one time, John Fettis, famous lead trumpet player, and he has also a big a gap between his front teeth. And when I saw him, he said, "Oh, you have a gap between your front teeth, nice." I don't know if it works, but he has one and he says it's good, so I keep it that way.
Okay, great. Well, your new CD has the title Trust.
Yeah.
And I think the CD and the songs on it, they still tell stories, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain what kind of stories you are telling and what your general message is, maybe?
Yeah, yeah. As what I said before, for me it's not always easy to translate music and sounds into the meaning in words, but at least the feeling it catches, I think. Trust is kind of is the title song or title tune, and it's about it has kind of a some kind of Miles Davis sound in some way. I think the intro, and yeah, trust is just it's about relationships, about how you work together, the musicians' relationships or family relationships, and yeah, it's almost corny, but it's just like, you know, trust has to be there to make things grow and to make things work, and I think the other songs have a kind of a connection with that. Like there's another song which is called Nostalgia, which is more just about, you know, the things from in the past. So it also has kind of a yeah, some kind of emotional relationship with trust, and yeah. I mean, it's for me the whole story. It's difficult to really think about, but I think it goes from just yeah, who I am, how I like to see people, how I like to work with people in a way of trust, and I think the music also reflects that, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Well,
a difficult question.
Yeah.
I had to tell it before, and I still don't have the perfect answer.
Great. Well, can you tell me what you like about teaching? What do you teach, and who are your students?
Yeah. Well, actually, I have to confess that these days I'm not teaching much. I used to teach at the university in Daegu. I used to teach at the university in Busan, in the south of Korea, and there is kind of a shortage of jazz brass players in Korea. So there's always like if there's a teaching job, it's like for 2 or 3 students, and it's normally not enough to pay for the gasoline to get to the place. And so at the moment there's not much work in universities as a jazz trumpet player, but there's I always have a few like private students who just come to my practice room or house even, and at the moment also not so much because I just moved to a new area, and there but yeah, I enjoy teaching, but it also limits the possibilities of being a freelance player in some ways. If you have a stable teaching work, it's difficult to do different projects, and so at the moment we focus mostly on just, you know, temporary things. One fun thing I did, which I really enjoyed, is teaching at interesting places. Like my first work in Korea was teaching in a prison, and that was kind of a fun experience, also a little bit scary in the beginning, because you go through the doors and they close everything and you cannot bring your phone, and you just feel like kind of, you know, suddenly in there. And that was a prison. We tried to make a big band there, and then, you know, it's kind of big plan because the people there, they cannot even bring their instruments to their cell because it's too dangerous, so they could only play it once or sometimes twice a week. So that's already kind of like a challenge. How can they learn something in that time? And then, but they learned something and it built up, and, you know, in the end they could do kind of a performance, play simple songs like Tequila or something, and it was fun. And so that's kind of like a thing I enjoy doing. Instead of I enjoy kind of 2 things. One is really focus on, if I have trumpet students, focus on improvisation, and then what I mean with improvisation in this case is more like the bebop orientated theories of improvisation, or more traditional jazz style improvisation, and other things is more just ensemble classes, so more just about playing together, and that's also very fun. Yeah, I enjoy that.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, can you tell me what inspire you? And that can be anything, like music or literature, poetry, landscapes. Beside your wife.
Yeah, I won't talk about her more. So the what inspires me for music? Well, can I say my son? Maybe. Yeah, inspiration. I think for me, most inspiration maybe comes just from other music. Maybe, yeah, I enjoy listening to music, and it's yeah, also exotic kind of styles of music, music that is not directly something what I know or what I feel like I could play myself, but what I enjoy listen to different sounds, different traditional kind of sounds. And yeah, I get some inspiration from that, and yeah, I think I'm not a very complex person. I think maybe I'm also not the most intellectual person. I think so. Yeah, I couldn't say more detailed things about inspirational, philosophical things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you like in terms of beauty the most about living in Korea?
Beauty.
Yeah.
It's a good question, because most people when they visit Korea, especially Europeans, they are not so excited about Korea, because it's the first thing what you see in the city is just busy city life. It's not there's not so much tradition what you see directly. Like a lot of things are gone through the war with Japan or the Korean War, and it's sometimes you just see a lot of new buildings. Well, what I feel is kind of the beauty of Korea. One is just the nature. There's a lot of great mountains, very nice places where people haven't been or haven't changed much. Like if you come, then I visit the Netherlands, I can see there's a lot of nature, but mostly always touched. It's like, it's all controlled. There's a lot of earth, but it's made into fields. And so that's quite a different thing. I think that's a big beauty thing of Korea. There's also quite a pure kind of feeling inside the culture in some ways. It's like until quite recently it was quite closed, the country, and so the culture has, in some ways quite pure kind of feeling. You can see that also in more like in the Netherlands we're quite liberal, and there is a little bit different. There's some things what are actually negative in many ways, like gay rights or other kind of what we feel here as a normal right or normal, like a divorce or something, is a little bit more difficult there. But on the other side, that kind of pure thing also gives kind of it's nice, feels good. Yeah. So of course that what I just said before it's a bad thing. It's not a nice thing to suppress people's natural feelings or whatever they want to do, but it also has that kind of pure kind of cultures also have feels kind of comfortable for me. It's nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if there is no sound, no music around, how does your private life look like? Just very short.
Sorry?
Your private life, how does it look like?
Okay, if there's no music.
Exactly.
It's mostly family. My son is 4. In Korea they say 5, so he's confused now because he's 4. So, but yeah, so we are busy with him, trying to learn things, and now there's a new one coming, so busy with that also. So it's mostly about family, and I also enjoy looking around the country. So I like to go to the mountains. I enjoy visiting different places in Korea. It's fun, and it's just eating, of course. Yeah, I like eating, and yeah, it's a quite different kitchen, a quite different style of cooking, and the basic. Like for me, the change was not difficult. I enjoyed the food, and I still enjoy the food. For Korean people, it's quite different. Like my wife comes here, and she has quite some difficulties to adjust to morning bread, afternoon bread, evening maybe bread, and so that's quite a difficult thing. And Korean culture is also all about food. So if you in the Netherlands, we see food more as a kind of thing you have to do to eat. To live, you eat, so you eat, and then it's finished and it's good. But in Korea, if you turn on the TV, it's all about food. If you want to thank somebody, you buy food. It's a big part of culture. Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.